all my live streams, for those who don't know, start out with me adjusting the camera to make sure that it's centered because I'm very picky about everything. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. No, that doesn't. Okay, we're good on the top. Might need to slightly adjust the bottom. subtle difference. I don't know if anybody even cares. Actually, I'm quite confident nobody does. All right, that's good. I'm centered. So, how's everybody doing? Is anybody here yet? Probably not. I was thinking this past week about a lot of different things, and one of the things that has been on my mind more than anything else is probably grief. But what I had like a weird little epiphany 2 days ago, or maybe yesterday. I think it was 2 days ago, where I just got back in the mood for doing psychological stuff, and I realized that I'd been spending a lot more time than I ever wanted to on politics and collective issues, world events, and the simplest way to describe that is that it's sort of like I shifted gears from talking about advanced issues and personal issues and, content that's made for people who already understand the importance of what to do politically. Like, maybe you get it. Maybe I don't need to tell you who to vote for or why. Maybe I don't need to explain politics or, educate you on things that I would have hoped by the time you're an adult you already learned. What about the people who already know those things, who don't need to have, you know, kindergarten level stuff explained to them again? It is disappointing when I look at the world and I see how many people do need kindergarten level stuff explained to them. It's disappointing because, you know, we're all adults here, and yet there are a lot of full grown adults who still bully, who still make incredibly stupid, uninformed decisions, and who just generally have a very unpleasant demeanor, and nobody really wants to be around them. They don't treat other people with kindness, empathy, compassion, respect. They don't take the time to educate themselves before making extremely impactful and important decisions. And they are very gullible and easily led. And it's really, they're loud, and there are many of them. And I've been gearing a lot of my content toward them when I don't think they're really even my audience, and I don't think even if they were, there's anything I could say to change their minds. So I think it's time that we shift gears and just ignore those people. I have too much to teach for people who already understand those things because I'm constantly learning new shit myself. And, as I learn a lesson, what I had been doing up until the election became really prominent was I would learn something and then I would share it with my audience. Because as I'm learning things, that's when I'm most passionate about them and most excited. But I also get really passionate about politics and world events, so that passion was kind of overriding it. And my main priority was let's convince as many people as possible who to vote for in this election. But the election's over. There's no point in doing that anymore. It's time to shift gears. So, yeah, we're going to start talking about some of the stuff that I'm going through and that I'm learning right now that I think might be helpful to just anybody. So, yeah, content geared toward a different audience now, where it's time to just ignore the people who need to be told obvious shit. And I suggest that you do that too, because these people are not worth talking to, they're not worth teaching. If they haven't figured it out by now, nothing you say is going to make a difference. Hey Royce, hey Aaron. I actually have people watching today, that's nice. So what have I been learning? Um, I've been learning the importance of what I just said. You know, if you raise your vibration and you just ignore everything that's trying to pull it down, you'll be fine. I just recently lost a friend, and that is what sent me into a grief spiral. And I watched a movie last night. Um, I watched a couple movies. I've been watching a lot of movies lately because I'm getting into Marvel. But I watched the 2002 Spider-Man, but then I watched the 2012 Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, and the stream where you made death threats has been reported. Oh God, Dave's here. Goodbye. I never made death threats against a real person. I made death threats against a fake person who spams all my content. And they weren't threats, they were expressions of annoyance. Obviously, when you have a little pest coming onto your channel under a million different fake accounts who never fails to make an appearance and will not leave you alone, you want that person to die because you literally know nothing about them. I don't have a face, I don't have a name, it's not even a real person, it's just an idea of a person. So I didn't make death threats, okay? I don't know what you're reporting. Um, there are some people that I have enough anger toward that I guess, you know, you could get angry enough to say shit like that, but I'm not a murderer. I've never murdered anyone. I don't have any plans to murder anyone, and nothing's gonna change that. I literally would only ever kill someone if it was the only way to stop them from trying to kill me. If I had somebody on top of me and they were trying to kill me with a knife and I turned it around on them, there you go. Then I'm gonna kill someone. But that's not murder. That's self-defense. Um, you know, and I can talk about whatever I want because this is my channel, and you are an annoying little pest with a million different fucking accounts. Let's see. Is this how the stream is going to go? With him butting in like that? No, because I just blocked him, and if he keeps coming in, I'm just gonna keep blocking him. Just an endless list of accounts that he has that I'm just gonna keep blocking everyone he tries to talk to me with. He never says anything about what I'm actually talking about. He just comes in and starts playing the victim and acting like somehow he's the victim, even though I have absolutely no way to do anything to harm him. Because, like I said, I don't know where he lives, I don't know his name, I don't know what he looks like. All I know is that he has a million fake accounts and he's got a vendetta against me. So, yeah, the world would be better off without him. I would feel safer without him. Yep, here he goes. Oh, he's saying I wish death on Trump. Well, yeah, I do wish death on Trump. I think he's a horrible person, and I think, again, the world is much safer without him. But again, I don't have any plans to do anything about it. I just think that it would be nice if he died. So, yeah, you and Trump. I wish you were both dead, but you won't be, and I can't do anything about it, and that's annoying. Mod me and I'll block all his accounts. Oh, that's not necessary. I do it really easily. So anyway, got that off my chest. I'm not gonna respond to him from this point because I think that's why he keeps coming back, is because I keep acknowledging him. But you know, I just for everyone else watching, he's saying I made death threats. I just wanted to clarify what he's referring to, just so anybody who's new knows why he thinks that he can say that. So let's see. We were talking about grief. I lost a friend, and then I watched The Amazing Spider-Man. Back on track. Okay. So in The Amazing Spider-Man, he lost his Uncle Ben. Happened in the original one, the 2002 movie too, but there was a scene where he was in school and there was a kid who said he understood what he was going through, and I could tell that it was so much more than that because You know, you're like, oh, you lost an uncle. That's really sad. But you don't know the context, you know? Like he's not just upset because he lost an uncle. He's upset because he blames himself, because he's looking at all the nuances of that situation and seeing how he was involved in it. He's thinking, this is my fault. I was rude to him and I was angry and I was irresponsible and all this stuff and I didn't do enough to stop it from happening. So it was so much more than just grieving a death. You were also processing the role you played in it and thinking about your responsibilities regarding it, revolving around it. And that's what makes grief so complicated. They say there's 5 stages. There's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But the truth is, grief is not that simple. I have experienced grief in many different ways, and I don't think I could ever categorize it in those 5 stages. I think that I tend to experience those 5 stages in a different order sometimes. I tend to skip some steps. I don't always bargain. I'm not always in denial. But I sometimes have anger at the end or all throughout, or, you know, like it's not that simple. And I don't even always go into depression. Sometimes I'm just in the what just happened phase. I understand that it happened. I don't expect to change it, and I'm not angry about it, but I can't stop thinking about it and wondering what's happening. Dave says I'm sick. Wonderful. This is ridiculous. Where? I feel like you guys said some stuff. I went to a gay bar and made out with 2 guys. Oh, congratulations. That sounds fun. Grief, like mental health, is not one size fits all, and it's not always linear. Yeah, exactly. Any negative comments, any useless, negative, angry, bullshit comments are going to be blocked, and I will be hiding you from the channel, not just removing your comment. The person making the comment will be gone. So even though I know it's coming from one person, just putting it out there. I don't care if you're Dave or not. Don't just spam negative shit or I'm going to remove you, and you won't have the ability to comment anymore unless you make another account, which I know for some of you that isn't a problem, but I'll block every account that you give me. So try it, I dare you. It's not going to get you anywhere. Where are we? So yeah, it's not linear. Royce is right. Several people have reported what you said. You mean you from several different accounts. All right. And nobody's going to do anything about it. And if anybody did, on the off chance that, like, I don't know, somebody showed up at my door and questioned me about it, I can defend what I said, because I am one of thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people thinking or feeling the same way about Donald Trump. A lot of people feel that way, okay? They either can't follow up on everything, or they're only going to follow up on the ones where it seems like there's a legitimate, tangible threat. Like if I expressed some form of a plan. I have a friend who, this person I'm still friends with, not the one that I lost. He said that a friend of his a couple years ago said something like they were going to have Trump was going to be in town or something for some reason, and she was like, I don't know, she tweeted and said, let me go get my gun or something, and it was her way of saying, like, I don't know, I was gonna shoot myself or something. I don't know. It wasn't even about Trump, but the police actually came to her house and had to follow up on that. And she was fine. She didn't get arrested. Nothing happened to her. But it was, you know, they still had to follow up on it, and they were like, yeah, we've been doing this a lot. So, you know, that was looked into because it was like a tangible threat. You're like, hey, this person has means, opportunity, motive. We got to look into this. I don't have any of that. I don't know where the guy is. I don't have any way to get there. I don't have any weapons. I don't own guns. I don't have anything that I could use to kill Trump if I wanted him dead. I just really would be happy if I read a headline that Trump had diarrhea on the toilet and died from it. You know, I want something to happen to him. I have no plans to make it happen though. But I do think that karma is coming around. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm holding out hope that the grave he's been digging for himself, with all the horrible things he's done and continues to do, is eventually he's gonna get knocked into it. Because you can only dig so deep before you have to pay for the shit you've done, for the people whose heads you've stepped on. Eventually, those people are gonna come back, and they're not gonna be happy. That's why karma exists. That's why you shouldn't hurt people to get where you're trying to go, because you're making enemies. And I think what the funniest thing that's going to happen is eventually the entire country is going to realize what they just asked for, and they're going to realize how insanely dangerous his presidency is going to be, and that everything's just going to be more expensive, which is the whole reason they voted for him, for things to be cheaper. They're not going to get what they wanted. Nobody's going to be happy about this. And that in itself is karma for the people who voted for him. And, you know, they basically voted for their own karma, and the rest of us are just going to be collateral damage. But as for Trump and his karma, I don't know what's coming, but he's not going to get away with this. And I'm going to be eating my popcorn, watching as karma rolls around for him. It's going to be interesting. And it's big. This is a huge thing. I couldn't personally handle something so big that it's going to affect the whole world, you know? His death would not be a minor event in any capacity. But I don't know if it's even going to be death. He could just go to prison. There could be a million things. So your whole family must be very ignorant. You must be very ignorant, sir. So yeah. I mean, Dave must have like 50 different accounts. That's an understatement. I'm sure the guy's got thousands of accounts. I don't know where he comes up with these names, because I've made YouTube channels before, you know? It's not something that you can just do in the snap of a finger. You gotta, like, there's a lot that goes into it. You gotta come up with a username and come up with a new email, and then you gotta sign into that email. You sometimes have to use a phone number. It's like, why would you have this many accounts? It's so weird. It is so weird. But oh God, I hate that I can't do anything about it. You know, you have the authority to block someone, but what do you do when you block them and they just keep finding ways to come back? It's like a cockroach that you just can't kill. It's irritating as shit. But yeah, let's get back to grief. We were talking about grief. It's not linear, comes in stages, and not everyone experiences it the same way. So what happened with me is that I had to do a lot of reflecting, and I had to ask myself if what happened was my fault. So basically, I had two of my friends over the same night, and one of them just, I don't really call anyone who disagrees with you Dave. I don't call it, the irony of the person making that comment having the name David Bryant. Oh my God. But I don't call anyone who disagrees with me Dave. I know it's the same person, and I know your name isn't really Dave. I don't know what the hell your real name is, but for a long time, you commented on my channel as Dave London, and then one day you revealed your true colors. You revealed how much of a leech you are. And I mean, if you, let's say on the off chance that police show up at my door and say, "Did you make death threats?" I'm gonna say, "I have someone I want you to investigate. Can you find out who is behind these YouTube channels, and can I get a restraining order? Can you maybe investigate this person and find out if he's done anything illegal? Because I'm sure he has." And then maybe he'll get in trouble. Maybe my creepy YouTube stalker will get in trouble. That would be nice. Then no one would have to worry about him anymore. But for the love of God, can you just leave me alone at least? I mean, Jesus, what do you get out of this? But, yeah, just, I've thought about asking for police, but it's just too much work. I can barely get enough motivation to like go to the doctor and make an appointment. You know, I have trouble motivating myself to get out of bed. I have been going through a rough time, and taking initiative and doing things myself, I just keep finding myself wishing, like a little kid, that I could just have an adult telling me, all right, time to go to school, time to go to the doctor, time to do this, time to do that, making my appointments for me, taking me there. I don't have to worry about anything. Um, and it's been rough because no one is telling me what to do, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel guilty about it, which brings me to cognitive dissonance, which is when you feel like there's something you're supposed to do, but you're not doing it. Um, Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort you feel when your actions don't match your behavior. And you can either change your actions your actions don't match your beliefs. You can either change your actions to match your beliefs, or you can change your beliefs to match your actions. But you shouldn't just leave it as it is, because then you'll be experiencing that discomfort for a long time, and you're going to find yourself making excuses and justifications. You're going to not do that thing you think you're supposed to be doing, and you're going to keep coming up for reasons why it's okay. This is the same thing that motivates people to commit murder, to do all sorts of things, because they think, no, it makes sense. This is justified. I believe murder is wrong, but it's okay because I want it. I'll get something out of it. In this case, it's an exception, but I still believe murder is wrong. So you can either decide, maybe murder isn't wrong and I can just kill whoever I want for any reason. Or you can say, maybe murder is wrong and I shouldn't be killing. But you can't do both. You can't both say murder is wrong and then still go out and murder people. But there are people who do that, and that is cognitive dissonance. So I've been experiencing that, where I'm like feeling guilty about a lot of things that I'm either doing or not doing. And most of it is not doing stuff. But then that guilt just sits there and festers, and I just avoid it. I don't make excuses, but I just don't even look at it. I don't even give it a voice, because I couldn't make excuses. I know that there aren't any, besides the fact that you know, it it's hard sometimes, you know, to find that motivation. But what I am good at is when it hurts other people, that's what motivates me. When I can see a tangible way that my action or inaction is hurting somebody else, then I will get involved, and I'll do whatever it is I think I'm supposed to do. But when I'm the only victim, I don't usually do it because I don't care as much about myself. Um, we all need an adult sometimes. I do the cognitive dissonance 24/7, 365. Somebody said, "Who is Dave?" By the way. Well, it might be you, but I guess you would know that. So if it's not you, Dave is just the first of many names that an internet stalker of mine used to stalk me. So that's just how I refer to him. He has about 346,000 different YouTube accounts, and he comments from all of them, and I block all of them, and he just keeps having more somehow. So that's the answer. He always says negative shit, always hateful, always problematic. And he never talks about anything that I'm actually discussing. Never shares his thoughts on my topics unless it's something that he knows would upset me, because that's his whole goal, is to piss me off. And he usually succeeds, unfortunately. I always get a little annoyed every time I see him. So I'm probably just gonna stop acknowledging him. I mean, I say that, but then I see a comment and I can't fucking help myself. I just always want to answer questions that are asked. But I still block the accounts. And I'm not blocking you because you didn't really say anything negative, but, you know, if I get the impression that you're Dave, I'm going to block you. Dave is a creepy stalker who likes to go off when his beliefs are challenged. Yeah, pretty much, Royce. You kind of summed it up. So, let's see. I have a lot of guilt for the things that I do and don't do in my everyday life. And I think basically just is just depression. I have a lot of things that I have planned on doing since I was a kid. And I thought by the age of 23, which is how old I am now, been 23 for a little over a month, I thought that I would have done a lot more of those things. And I thought that I had a plan of how I was going to get to where I wanted to be and do the things I wanted to do. Human mind is so complex during a life. Everything is influential and it results a personality and a vision of things. Fair enough. So yeah, I thought that I was going to be further ahead than I am. And I found myself in a stage of comfort where it's easier to just sit back and not do anything and not make any changes, to just sort of hide from life and just be like, okay, I'm okay right now. I got clothes on my back. I got roof over my head. I got food on my plate. I got a bed to sleep in. I'm comfortable. Don't upset the balance. And as I imagine going out into the world and making the changes that I want to make, not only in my life, but just, as an impact into the world, the art that I want to create, the stories that I want to write, the movies I want to direct, and the influence that I want to have in other ways, like, making content like this, um, offering people, therapy sessions and getting, some form of certification, possibly. What I might do is I might get like intuitive life coaching certified because a friend of mine offers that and I trust her. So that would be nice. Then I could offer that. That's kind of what I would like to be doing, anyways, intuitive life coaching, spiritual life coaching, whatever it's called. Because life coaching and therapy are not one and the same. Therapy is about looking into your past, looking into why you are the way you are. Life coaching is about how can we move you forward and get you out of whatever you want to go. So as the names imply, it's kind of self-explanatory, but I would like to do a combination of the two because I think that you can't have one without the other. You can't move forward in your life until you figure out why you're where you currently are. And if you do both, you'll be helping people. So I would like to do that. I'd like to do a lot of things. I'd like to finance my own curriculum for public education. Not sure if I'd have a literal school building or if it would be something online or what it would be. But I would like to create something that could be geared toward educating kids and teaching them things that they actually need to know in life. All the important stuff in addition to the basics that you learn in school. So, because I think there's a lot of time wasted in school. I think that there's a lot of like buffer in curriculum where they're teaching you things that aren't necessarily that useful. And they could fill that time with things that are more useful. And the general way that it's designed also could be changed because it's designed to keep people afraid. There's a lot of punishment reward design there, and you're supposed to be afraid of punishment and afraid of your teacher, and you're supposed to be afraid to fall out of line and not do what's asked of you. So great idea. I really support you to do that. And I think that that is unhelpful. I think people are not supposed to be obedient to authority. I was just listening to a debate with Christopher Hitchens about religion last night, and the other guy that he was talking to in the debate said, I think the question was something about, are people better under the authority of religion? And he said, I couldn't believe he said this, but he said, the example of slavery, the people who believed in abolishing slavery and freeing the slaves, they said that they were acting under God's authority. And I thought, are you seriously telling me that you believe people taking someone else's command, doing something simply because somebody else said so, not because they actually understand it themselves, is a good thing because in one example of that, it resulted in people freeing slaves? Do you realize the entire point of slavery was a result of that? How did people wind up owning slaves in the first place? How do you think those slaves felt about doing what someone else wanted just because they had no choice? Their owners command them to do something. They threaten them with violence if they don't do it. That sounds a lot like religion. God commands you to do this, says if you don't do it, you'll burn in hell for eternity. Sounds very similar. Um, and you're trying to paint that as a good thing using the example of slavery. I think slavery is an example of why that's a bad thing. Why the people who did someone else's bidding for no other reason than they felt like they had no choice, like they were afraid if they didn't do it, that does not sound like a good thing. I don't think it's possible to make a good argument in favor of people taking other people's authority. Oh, here comes Dave. Sorry Zach broke up with you. That is 100% a Dave thing to say. Okay. All right. So I don't think it's possible to like make a good argument in favor of people being obedient to authority, because the thing is, when someone understands, let me give you this example. Let's say you've got a bunch of kids in school trying to learn how to do the right thing. That same person in the Christopher Hitchens debate that I was listening to, he talked about how the most common age of bullying is preschool. And he said that's because our natural instincts, our natural inclination is to be bullies and to be violent and to be bad people. We need to be taught how to be good. And I say to that, you're right. We do need to learn how to override our initial instincts. We need to be told to share, to be generous, to be kind. Because, when we're born, our primitive instincts, much like animals, is kill or be killed. It's survival. It's very selfish and self-oriented and protecting. And we need to learn with our own cognitive abilities to override that and say, you know what? I'm safe. I'm okay. I don't need to be this defensive and fearful. I can relax and I can worry about taking care of other people instead. I can actively, consciously choose love over fear. And that is not your first instinct. If it was, the human experience would be kind of pointless. The whole point of the human experience is to strengthen your ability to choose that, even though it isn't easy. So, your parents are supposed to be nurturing you in that, helping you in that. They're not supposed to be forcing it on you. They shouldn't be using fear to teach you how not to be afraid. That makes zero sense. And imagine if you literally put a metal suit, or not a metal suit, like a mechanical suit, on a kid that you could remote control and force the kid to do everything. And every time the kid went out of line, you forced his hand away. Well, yeah, now the kid is doing what you want him to do, and maybe that is the right thing, but he doesn't, excuse me again, but he doesn't understand why. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand why he isn't supposed to be doing that. You say, don't push that button, and then he goes to do it, and then you force his hand away. Well, good, you stopped him from pushing the button, but he doesn't understand why that button wasn't supposed to be pushed. So, in some serious situations, it is important to intervene and stop someone from pushing a button that's going to end the earth. But you don't want to just leave it at that and then just teach them to be afraid of pushing that button. You want them to understand why that button should not be pushed so that they can choose on their own not to do it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink unless you jam a funnel down its throat and literally, and then it'll start choking and you just force it. You could put a catheter and force someone to pee and not, there's a million ways that you could literally force something to happen to someone or force someone to do or not to do something. You can use manipulative tactics and fear to control people, and I see a lot of parents and teachers use these tactics. They like to control people with fear because their goal is to get the tangible, real world, physical thing accomplished, to stop the kid from doing that thing. Their goal is not to make the kid understand why that thing shouldn't be done. Sometimes it is. I've seen it. I've seen teachers understand that. I've seen teachers prioritize that. But it isn't always reflected in their behavior or their curriculum or the general way things are set up. They sometimes just get lazy and say, don't do that because I said so. And that misses the whole point of learning how to do things as a human. Sometimes people find in religion what they are looking for, some answers to their questions, a vision of life, or the reason of what is everything, why is there everything around, etc. Yeah, and I find those questions fascinating endlessly. I think that we should ask those questions, explore the answers to those questions, have interesting discussions with philosophers and people who are educated in science and know what they're talking about, and come up with interesting answers and acknowledge what we don't know. It's okay to say we don't have an answer to that, but let's explore the possibilities. Let's figure shit out together. And what are your conclusions? And what do you think? How did you come up with, we could treat religion like that, but the problem is that organized religion is used to control people with fear instead. It isn't just a theory or an idea or like, oh, this is a possibility. Maybe it's this. Maybe this is the answer to some of the questions we don't have. They instead say this is the answer to all your questions. Follow me, do everything I say, follow all my teachings, or you'll burn in hell for eternity. That's not okay. That's a problem. And that's going to create a society of people who are terrified to make a mistake. It's a method of keeping people in line. It's not about actually helping people or educating people or doing anything good for people. It's about controlling them for your will. So when you do the right thing because God said so, not because you actually understand why it needs to be done, you're missing the point. A lot of people don't know the difference between right and wrong intuitively. They only know what God supposedly says, and they often decide to do or not to do things based on that. And a perfect example of this, a lot of people who are religious believe that homosexuality is a sin, that it's immoral to act on it, to just be that way. They believe that it's wrong and that anybody who acts on homosexual tendencies is going to go to hell forever. They believe this only because God supposedly said so, but they don't actually have any real reason to think that. They don't. There's no logic behind it. It's literally just the teacher said not to open that door, so you don't open that door because the teacher said so, and you say, why shouldn't I? Because the teacher said so. Well, why does the teacher say so? I don't know. They wouldn't tell me. So one day you get a little curious and you open that door and you find that your teacher has murdered a bunch of people and has been keeping them in that room. And your teacher didn't want you to know that. Your teacher was desperately trying to keep that a secret. Sometimes authority figures lie to you, which is why the relationship you need to develop is not with someone claiming to be God or with a human being. It is with yourself, your own higher mind, your gut instinct, your intuition. That's God. That's that energy frequency that you can tap into where you just know in your gut, in your heart, that something is wrong or that something is right. And sometimes it is logical. Oftentimes it is. You can logically figure out what makes something right or wrong. And it almost always revolves around whether or not it's hurting other people. Which is why two consenting adults in their bedroom shouldn't be anybody's business. But somehow religion has convinced people that it is. And that's why it's not healthy, because there's no logic behind it. They're literally just doing what they think God wants them to do. They're ignoring the potential room of dead bodies that the teacher says not to open just because the teacher knows everything and is an authority figure. Authority figures are not healthy. We do not need authority. We need educators. We need people that can lead the way, help us out, but they're working for us. Think about it. It's a burden to lead the way for someone else. It's a burden to turn around and share what you learned after you learned it instead of continuing down your own journey. You're not a follower, you're a leader. That is a responsibility. That is a burden. That's not something that you should feel powerful. You're not powerful. You're doing labor. And you should feel good about it, because think about the people that you're helping. But people think of it as a position of power. And instead of thinking about the people that they're helping, they just see it as, ooh, all these people trust me. I can control them. And they see it as a position of power. And then they try to convince people that authority is a good thing. And then they just control everybody. So authority is not a good thing. I cannot express that enough. Royce said, that's how foie grass, some kind of something, is made, forcing ducks to eat a mix of oil and corn by shoving a tube down their throats. That is true. Many a religion forces their beliefs through fear. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So how does this connect back to the topic at hand, which is grief? Well, I brought it up because I was thinking about the things that I want to do, and I was talking about how I think things could change in the world and the role that I would like to play in contributing to that. And instead, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just sort of waiting to take action and hiding from life. And that's one thing that I would never judge someone for because I genuinely understand it. I would never want someone to feel judged for that. But instead, I would want to encourage them and lift them up and give them, positive encouragement and motivation and give them some light and healing and positive energy. Um, but there are also people who do not think like me and who would rather bring someone else down. When you see someone who you feel intimidated by, you might think, wow, this person, um, they're smarter than I am, and they have so much potential to do so many amazing things. And on a surface level, yes, I would love to see them do those things, but also it makes me feel inadequate. It makes me feel insecure, and it makes me question things about myself. So I'm going to instead shift gears, and whether it's a conscious decision or just a like an innate reaction, kind of like what I was talking about, how that is our instinct, and we need to learn how to fight that. Some people aren't good at that. Some people get real primitive with it, and then they start saying, "All right, this person is a threat to me. This person makes me feel insecure. I'm going to start looking for every negative thing about them and start bringing it up and grilling them and making them feel uncomfortable and defensive. And I'm going to play the victim so that they don't all they feel is bad about themselves. They can't get mad at me because all I'm doing are pointing out things that I have a suspicion that they're insecure about. And I just had someone do this to me. I had someone study me, openly admitting that he was studying me, paying attention to my behavior, watching everything that I did, trying to learn more about me, I thought, as a friend. And then he started using everything against me and picking out all the things that he knew that I was insecure about, that I was nervous about, guilty about, and just started going after me. And at a certain point, after a few months, after every interaction I had with this person, I started to feel bad about myself. I started to feel guilty, and I couldn't stop reeling in my head about how it went. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was like, why do I feel so awful after every interaction with this person? It wasn't like this at the beginning. Um, so I don't know what this person's motivation was. I don't know what their situation is. I can't pretend to know. I am not them. It's his business. All I know is what it felt like to experience it. All I can do is speculate as to what exactly was taking place, based on how it felt to experience it happening to me. Let me catch up on comments before I continue. We have to ask ourselves who created mystical ideologies, from the caves with shamanism to the monotheism and other religions. We understand that the first man wanted to know the unknown. Well, everybody wants to know what they don't know. And that's just a part of being alive, is seeking knowledge, seeking information, seeking answers to questions. Because we come into the world and we're like, what is all this? Why is all this? What am I? What are you? What is the point of anything? Those are valid questions. And you're going to explore the world looking at a bunch of adults who are supposed to know everything, and they're going to have conflicting answers. And you're going to realize it's up to you to figure those answers out. But you should never just take anybody else's word for something. So make sure you run it through your own interpretation and make sure that you're always using your own critical thinking skills. But yeah, so I know that this experience with this friend, I don't want to shit talk him. I don't want to presume his intentions. All I can tell you, like I said, is how it felt to be on the receiving end of his behavior and his words. It literally felt like I was studied, and then everything that was learned about me was used against me to make me feel bad about myself, to bring me down. And the worst part is that it was under the guise of helping me. It was, under the pretense of, this will be good for you, this will help you. When all I can think is, it didn't feel like the concern was what was good for me. It felt like the concern was what was wrong with me, you know? And that's none of his business. Quite frankly, a lot of the things that he was saying about me, trying to help me and give me solutions to problems, were problems that I did not ask for solutions for. I didn't ask for advice. And like I said, if I could see a tangible way that these problems were negatively affecting someone else, I would address it with that person within a certain boundary level where I would say, okay, I did this. It hurt you. How can I make it up to you? How can I fix this? How can I make sure it doesn't happen again? But that doesn't mean you get to go into my life and then tell me what's wrong with me and start suggesting solutions because in a broader sense. All you need to be concerned about is how my actions affect you and let my business be my own. Don't get that involved. That's what it felt like. So I tried communicating that with him, and this is how the friendship ended. I explained that in the clearest way that I knew how. And his interpretation of that was, and I quote, "So it sounds like you just don't want to hear things you don't like because of some imaginary line." And I'm like, yeah, my boundary line isn't kind of the whole point of a boundary that it's imaginary, you know? And I didn't even say it rude. I literally said it in the same defensive, nervous tone that I'd been using that entire night. And the worst part is that, like I said, this happened when I had another friend over. I had two friends over at the same time. And it just felt like I was being embarrassed in front of my other friend. He doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to get into it. He's staying out of it. And I respect that. But part of me wonders what he thinks about that interaction because he did tell me that he has an opinion on it. He's the only witness to what took place that night. And I can't get him to talk. So it is what it is. But, all I know is that after I defended myself, and again, I didn't do it aggressively or rudely. The one thing I said that could be conceived as rude is I said, if you really think that I am an inconsiderate person, and I am assuming there's a lot of other negative things that he also thinks about me, then why are you here? Why would I want to know that someone who is claiming to be my friend thinks of me in such a negative way? And he got up and he just left. And my other friend left with him because it was too awkward to stay. Um, and and that was it. And then he texted that friend, and he texted my boyfriend, and he told them that he wouldn't be coming over anymore. He didn't even tell me directly. There wasn't even a proper goodbye. And I guess there wasn't a need for one because it was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious what happened and what he had decided. But then I had to reel over in my head the whole time, and I had to think, did I cause this? Was it my fault? Did I do something wrong? Was I rude? Was he making good points? And I just could not stop thinking about it. And that's the problem with grief, is that it isn't just, oh, damn, I lost a friend. It's what happened with this? Like, how, you start reflecting on the whole friendship, everything. Just, it's like, it's crazy. But I can't stop being angry that he said so many embarrassing things about me and to me in front of my other friend. It felt like he was trying to embarrass me. And, it was so unnecessary and so cleverly disguised as either just a joke or as concern and care for me and trying to help me and take care of me. But it was like so much more than that. It's like a fancy, pretty knife that I'm getting stabbed with. And it's like, but it's a good knife. You needed this. I'm giving you surgery. I'm taking out the cancer. It's like, I don't have cancer. You're just stabbing me. Come on. Like, it's ridiculous. Um, so yeah, the pretense of helping me with something I didn't ask for help for, something that's none of his business. If I had a tumor that he needed to cut out, that's still my business. If it was affecting him, if it was contagious, fine. But then don't start judging my character and going way harder in me than you need to about it. Like, just that's what I'm saying. Like, it went so far beyond just him defending himself. There were a couple things that I did and said over the course of our friendship that were just a result of me being a little bit ADHD. I don't know if I actually have ADHD, but just like just being a little bit like, I don't know, in my own head, not always paying attention to everything. Sometimes I miss things that are said. Sometimes I go somewhere else. Um, and this is just the way that I am. It's not harmful, because I'm still able to be productive in my day. I still make sure that it doesn't affect relationships. There was one example of something that he had said to me that he wanted me to do, and the urgency of how quickly I needed to get this done was not made clear to me. And there was one other thing um, that he asked me for that night that I completely forgot was even asked for. So um, that surprised me, and I didn't know, but I think the reason that I wasn't that I didn't hear those things is because in that moment, however it was being discussed with me, made me nervous. And I've been left with the impression that it wasn't entirely safe to be vulnerable and admit how how many things, like, I might just go somewhere else in my head. One thing that I'm also realizing is that this isn't an issue I have with a lot of people. Um, but I remember my shirt says Ivy League Psychic Academy. This is from a school designed by the psychic medium Ivy Rivera, who I consider her a friend. We she in her curriculum, she talked about how sometimes people who are operating on a lower vibration, darker energy, you may have a tendency to tune them out and not hear what they're saying. She even gave the example, like, it'll sound like in Charlie Brown, the adults are like, wah, 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 wah. Like, you literally will not hear them. Her specific example is if someone's possessed, if they have, like, an attachment or something that's, like, literally inside them, that you just might not even hear them. Your neck might get really hot. Your body will be telling you you're in the presence of something really dark. And I'm realizing now that I wouldn't go as far as to say that there's any sort of attachment or possession with this person, but I think it's clear that he was operating on a bit of a lower vibration. So, especially when he was talking to me in a certain way. So I might have just tuned him out for that reason and had no awareness that I was even doing it. Because one thing that I do know is that I don't do this with everybody. It's not like this is just an issue I have with every person that I interact with. I worked in retail with a bunch of customers who needed my attention, and coworkers and bosses. I had to pay attention to everything everybody said, and I did it. I was everybody's favorite cashier. I did a great job. I was the favorite employee among, the superiors that I worked with and my coworkers. Everybody liked me. So I am good at functioning in society and getting things done and paying attention to people when it's important. And when I'm around my friends, I relax a little bit. I don't pay as close attention, but I still think I hear them when they're talking to me and telling me things. There's only certain people who make me nervous, and then I accidentally tune them out. And I didn't realize until now how few people there are that I do that to, but I'm now realizing the people that does happen to, I'm probably trying to get away from them. Some part of me is trying to go somewhere else. Well, cognitively, I don't realize that, and I think that there's nothing to get away from, but I must have known that I wasn't safe in this person's presence, that there was something about their energy that had it out for me, and I was not in loving arms, so to speak. So that makes sense. I'm speculating live, by the way. This isn't me sharing something I've been thinking about. This is just live me trying to figure out what happened. I'm behind on some comments. Let me catch up. He projected his insecurities about himself onto how he saw you. I like your openness and sincerity. You are someone who say directly things without turning around or showing something else. I think you have a solid personality. Thank you. I appreciate that. Antonia Garcia says hi. But it's a good knife. You needed this. Really. When we talk, we connect amazingly. We are definitely both on a very similar high vibrational frequency. Yes, I agree. Intuition and being able to read people are amazing skills, and we both possess them both. Yeah, because you don't always realize you're doing it. Sometimes you may have let your guard down, and you think you're around someone it's safe to let your guard down with, but your intuition, your higher mind, never lets its guard down. It's always trying to tell you when something is wrong. Sometimes it will jump in and save you, even if you don't even ask for it. You're not even looking for red flags or anything. Your body tells you when something is wrong. You could be dating a really toxic person who could be an active cheater, or they could be an active manipulator, a narcissist, or oh, Amazing Cars 141 is Dave. I know that username, or at least something similar to that. It must be slightly different because I'm pretty sure I blocked the other one, but I know that's Dave. And also he said you're rude to everyone, so clearly that's Dave. Nobody else would say that to me. Stalker, crazy fucking people that I attract for some reason. I have so many stories about crazy people that I've interacted with. My friend Royce, who's commenting, he's heard a lot of them, and he said to me, "Where do you find these people?" And I'm like, "I don't know. They find me." Like, they literally just, I'm like a moth, I'm like a light, and they're like moths to the flame. They find me, and then I'm like, "Oh, who's this person?" And then I'm like, what is happening right now? What in the world? I have so many stories of mostly funny interactions I've had with people. Just to name a few, there's this guy who said, "Hey bestie," 4 times a day, every day, after I told him that I didn't want to talk to him anymore because he made me uncomfortable. There's Craig, the Christian spanker, this random guy who messaged me on Facebook and was like, "Hi, can I ask you something without you getting mad at me?" And I was like, I'm thinking, who the hell is this guy? Just a random person? So I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you like being spanked?" And I'm like, oh God. But I was like, I just figured just for my own amusement, I would continue responding. And we had a whole ass conversation. And eventually, as I started learning more about him, he just got weirder and weirder. I was like, "Is your whole personality revolving around spanking people?" And he was like, "No." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I haven't seen anything else about you. Tell me something more about yourself." And he was like, "Well, I'm a huge believer in Jesus." And I was like, "What?" And then he kept going. And then, because he's a guy messaging me, I figured that he was not straight. He told me that he was straight at some point. And I was like, "So why are you talking about spanking people? Why did you message me?" And he goes, "Because I like you." And he started giving me these weird non-answers, and it got so frustrating that I typed "I hate you" in all capital letters because I was losing my cool. I felt like I was talking to a brick wall. I got frustrated. And when you keep trying to do something and it seems like it's not going to get done and it's like impossible, you get angry eventually. You get like, "Oh my God, this is driving me nuts." So I said that to him, and his response was, "But I care about you." And I was like, "But why? I met you 24 hours ago. Who are you? Why do you care about me?" He's like, "It's just how I am." And then we didn't talk for like a week, and then out of nowhere, he starts messaging me again. And then I mentioned that I had a boyfriend, and he was like, "Oh, you have a boyfriend? I didn't know that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I literally have a picture of him on my Facebook profile. It says that I'm in a relationship. Did you even look at my profile before you messaged me?" And he goes, "I don't know." And I'm like, "And why do you care? I thought you said you were straight." And he's like, "Well, I'm not straight." And I'm like, "What?" It just, so I'm like, "So are you bisexual?" He's like, "I guess you could say that." And I'm like, oh God, what is happening? It just kept going and just kept not making any sense. And then just a bunch more stuff like that. Just weird people finding me in different ways on different apps, just coming out of nowhere and just being literally the most insane types of people. I had a random person message me and say that he wanted to marry me, and I was like, "Okay, all right, well, how would that work?" And because I was talking about the fact that I was already in a relationship, I said, "How would that work?" And he said, "It'll work, I promise." And I said, "Really? You're not going to elaborate?" And he goes, "No, sorry." And then this person is still, I still follow him on Snapchat. He still posts in his story every other day. He's like, I'm unadding people who lie to me. I keep getting lied to and cheated on." And it's like, because you try to date people that you don't know, and you're weird as shit. Like, the hell are you talking about? Yeah, I don't understand this. I really don't. But one of these people found me on YouTube, about a year ago and just became a subscriber, just someone who commented on my live streams. And I always thought he was weird, but one day I realized that he was more than weird. He was a catfish, and he wasn't being truthful about any aspect of himself. So I called him out on that, and then I blocked his account. Then he started coming back with, I must have blocked over 50 accounts by now. And I block like 5, 15 every live stream. He just keeps finding ways to contact me. So I can't get rid of this guy. And he just leaves negative comment. He used to leave positive comments, even though they made me uncomfortable. Creepy, weird shit. But now they're negative, and he's calling me hateful. He's also a Trump supporter, and he gets really defensive of Trump. And always comes on my live streams and says something negative about me that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, and it's annoying as shit, and I can't get rid of him because I block him and he comes back from with a different name. So, don't forget the dude who was catfishing with Lucky Bluesmith's pics. Yeah, that was a weird one too. That guy was super weird. Sent voice memos and sounded nothing like the guy in the pictures he had, and just said weird shit. Oh my God, all these people are insane. I don't know where they find me, but they find me. They reach out to me. I just interact for some reason. I have to go. It was a pleasure to hear you. You're a good person. Be yourself and stay safe around only positive energy like yours. Goodbye, my friend. Thank you. Jamal, are you French? You used the French spelling of positive. French is my second language. French is the second of my 3 languages. That's how I caught that. Haha. Really, that's great. Oh yeah, unfortunately, I am monolingual. I do not speak more than 1 language. So, anyway, where was I after my rant about crazy people? Probably I was talking about what it's like when your body protects you. So you're trying to, let's say you're in a relationship with a narcissist who's going to manipulate you and string you along for a long time and narcissists are so scary in relationships because, especially the covert narcissist, they're not open about it. They will always try to frame themselves as the victim, and their goal, all of these people's goal, anybody who's operating on a darker, lower vibration, is not, we are light, high vibrational beings. That's what we are intuitively. Physically, human beings are quite low vibrational, which is part of the challenge. The human experience is about learning to continue to have a high vibration despite being in something that's trying actively to weigh you down. But because of what we are intuitively, despite the meat suit, we're naturally high vibrational beings. So that's where we come from. That's our food source. That's what we need, is light. So when we deny light and we let the human experience get the best of us and we start going on a lower vibration, we're going to be hungry and starving for that light. We're still going to need that light because it is our food. So what we try to do, instead of getting it the natural way by just raising our vibration and getting it ourselves, we start to siphon it out of other people and stay dark where we feel safe, ironically, because we're not safe at all in that darkness, but we feel like we have control because the ego took over. You think that you're in charge of everything. You don't believe in any kind of higher vibration. You don't believe in any light source. You don't believe in anything that can take care of you, that you're in a bigger universe that has your back. You believe that you're on your own. No one has your back. You have to look out for yourself and fend for yourself. It's a very primitive, short-sighted way to see things. It's animalistic, and we have the capacity to be better than that cognitively. So there's no reason for us to feed that vibration. But when we are feeding it, we feel like we have to look out for ourselves and do whatever's necessary. So we start justifying hurting other people. And we're like, okay, this person has what I need. Let me take it from them. And it could be finances, resources. It could literally just be draining them of their positivity, just trying to knock them off their pedestal. And they could be a good person, minding their own business, doing good things, putting good out into the world, or at least having a goal of doing that. And you see them, you see all the good that they're putting into the world, and you just want to knock that out. I see this all the time. They gain nothing else from it. They're not getting money from this person. They're not getting anything. They're literally just bringing someone down for the sake of bringing them down. And that is how they siphon your light away from you, because then you're beaten down and they get a thrill from that, and you know, they take it out of you. And then they're still not full because they're never actually going to raise their vibration. So it's meaningless. So they're never actually going to get anything out of it. So yeah, anyway, what do we have? We have like bullies in school. This is a good example. A kid walks up to another kid. Maybe he's older. He's picking on an easy target. He sees someone who's sensitive, thoughtful, kind, maybe a good student, and all of a sudden, this kid is a nerd. This kid is a dork. This kid's gay. This kid's an asshole. This kid's this kid's a loser. Whatever negative thing you could say about them. And you walk up to that kid because you're so much bigger. You're a couple of years older. You're taller, and you push them over. And then they get up, and you push them right back down. And they get up again, you keep pushing them down. And eventually they get frustrated, kind of like that Craig the Christian spanker who got me all frustrated and I said I hate you. It's like that. They get so angry because every time they try to stand up, you just knock them right back down and you're making them feel helpless, like they can't do anything, they can't get anywhere. So maybe they say it. Maybe they say I hate you, or maybe they get angry and they look angry, or maybe they try to fight back and punch you back. Then you back up and you go, whoa, you're a freak. What's wrong with you? He's so scary. He's really losing his shit. It's just a joke. He can't take a joke. Oh my God. And then everyone jumps in and starts pointing the finger and laughing at the poor little kid getting bullied. So this is a problem. This kid does not deserve to get bullied. This kid is just trying to mind his own business. But this bigger kid saw him as an easy target and decided not only to push him down and make him feel small, but to get other people in on it and make sure everybody sees him as small, just to keep him down and lower that vibration, because it's threatening to him, makes him feel intimidated, makes him feel inferior, because he's not staying in his lane, he's not minding his own business. So that is not healthy, unfortunately, and I'm going to get political for a second. I think a lot of Trump supporters have that same mentality. I've seen a lot of people who voted for Trump who have the bully mentality. They love making the underdog feel small. They love pushing people down and bringing people down to their level. And it's so disappointing because I've seen an extreme increase ever since he won the election. That kind of behavior in humans, especially in men, has gone up a disturbing amount. There's been a rise in misogyny. There's been a rise in bullying. I think there was a gay kid who was just lured into a situation and then beaten to death, or beaten to almost to death. Something happened to a gay kid. This is not something to take lightly, because when you elect a bully to be the president, all it's going to do is enable that kind of mentality. We had an election symbolic of the underdog versus the bully, and the bully won. That's why I'm upset by the results of this election. It goes so much deeper than actual policy. And for the record, Trump doesn't even have any policies. Everything he's going to do is just make things more expensive, make rich people richer, and piss off other countries by being incompetent and arrogant and having a way too big of an ego to actually realize what the smart and appropriate thing to do is in any given situation. And he has way too much power that he doesn't know what to do with. So it's dangerous on every possible level. There's literally no upside to him winning. And anyone who was complacent in that, anyone who said, doesn't really matter who wins, I'm not going to bother voting, or I'm going to vote third party, shame on you. You had a responsibility to educate yourself on the severity of this election, because we are all going to be affected by what happens in the next 4 years. And you didn't educate yourself enough to know how important it was that we keep him out of the office. You didn't educate yourself enough to know what was at stake, and you bought into the ideology that it didn't matter. Maybe in previous elections, it didn't matter, because the truth is, regardless of whether a Democrat or a Republican gets elected, they're not actually going to do anything to make things better. But the Republican, almost 100% of the time, is going to actively make things worse. And why would you want that? Until we can find a way to fundamentally change the way things work and abolish the two-party system, because like I said, authority is not a good thing. That's designed around controlling people. It's designed around authority. Even my favorite comedian and philosopher, George Carlin, said that he thinks it's ridiculous that we have 37 different flavors of ice cream to choose from, but only 2 presidential candidates. You know what I mean? Like, everywhere you look, there's a million choices. but only 2 candidates for president. You can't pick anybody you want. Um, that is ridiculous. And it's also ridiculous to deny that reality. That is the situation we're in. You do have 2 options, and one of them is going to win regardless of whether or not you vote, regardless of whether or not you vote third party. You can vote for Jill Stein or, you know, Robert Kennedy or whatever the other people, whatever the other candidates' names are. You can vote for those people, but I promise you, all you're going to be doing is taking away votes from someone who actually has a chance at winning. And someone is still going to win, either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Those were your choices. And you either voted for Trump or you stayed home and didn't participate, which is complacent in letting him win. You didn't vote for the person who had a chance at beating him. And now you're going to have to suffer the consequences. And I hope that you do suffer the consequences if you didn't vote. I hope that you realize what a bad decision that was. Just as bad as it was to vote for him. Because it's not going to be pretty, and people are going to start waking up and they're going to start fighting for change, and I'm looking forward to that aspect of things. But I was really hoping that we could do that under Harris, because instead of fighting for change, we're just going to be fighting against the ways in which he's trying to take us back 100 years, which is just going to slow us down. But hopefully it gets us more invigorated and gets us more active than we would have otherwise been. So I guess there's still a positive way to look at it. But yeah, it's still, I mean, it's insane that people could act like this wasn't important. The people who stayed home, I don't understand that. I really don't. But we can't say that everyone is like that inside a group of people. People are like colors. They are different. Good and bad people everywhere, my friend. Well, yes, of course. And I'm talking about actions. I'm not talking about people. There is such a thing as a good and bad action. I don't judge people as good or bad. I don't say that's a bad person or that's a good person. I literally only judge actions. Donald Trump, I'm saying that he's a bad person because he consistently makes bad choices and has made too many bad choices to ever possibly make up for, unless he literally comes out into the world and just does things that I know he's never going to do. I mean, he could just come over and apologize, start actually fixing things, go in and do what he actually says he's going to do, be true to his word, make everything cheaper for everyone, make the world a better place, make the world a safer place. He could do that. And that would be a start to making up for all the wrongs he's done. He could apologize to the victims that, the people that he's raped, the people that he's sexually assaulted, that he's made rude comments about. He could apologize for the impact of his actions, all the people who've been bullied, beaten to death, talked down to, or made to feel small as a result of his rhetoric. But he's never going to. He wouldn't even think of doing that because he's clearly a narcissist. So I have no expectation that he would do that. So yeah, when I say that I don't think of people as bad people and I judge them by their actions, that doesn't mean there aren't people whose actions tell a very clear story of who they are and who they want to be perceived as. So as far as I'm concerned, he's dangerous, he's selfish, he's arrogant, and he needs to be stopped. And he's not going to do it himself. Somebody has to stop him. So a lot of the same things can be said for, his buddy Elon Musk. The man is literally the richest person in the world. If he wanted to, he could afford to just end world hunger. He literally could afford to do that, but he chooses not to. And then he has the audacity to say that it's going to be rough for a while as we fix price, inflation and stuff. It's like, what do you mean it's going to be rough for a while? If you're electing Donald Trump so that he can fix inflation and fix high prices on things, and you're saying in the long term it'll be good for everyone, but for a while it's going to be rough, why don't you give everyone a cushion for that rough time? Why don't you mail every U.S. citizen a check, and you'd still have a shitload left over just to get them through that rough time that you say is going to happen? Are you insane? He is, and all he cares about is himself and making himself richer. And that's the thing. Just these people just are full of shit. And I cannot believe people are buying it in this day and age. Are we not educated enough? The internet has information to educate you on things in ways that everyone has access to. But I guess the problem is that there isn't really anything to stop misinformation and disinformation. And and then they complain, we want free speech. Well, no one's trying to take away your free speech. And if they are, that is a problem. They shouldn't be trying to prevent you from telling the truth. But I think that there should be consequences for spreading misinformation and spreading hateful rhetoric. I think if you're going online to do that, you should face some sort of consequence for it. You know, that shouldn't be considered free speech if what you're accomplishing is convincing people of something that isn't true, or convincing people to hate a minority group and then putting people in danger. That should not go without consequence. That should not qualify as free speech. And why would anyone want it to? Because people are hateful and people are idiots. And people buy into the misinformation and they think it's the true information and that everything else is misinformation. And it's just a war of idiots who don't know what the fuck they're talking about or what they're doing. They don't know how to back up and use common sense, use their own head to figure out what's going on and what their role is in things. And it just so many people are so stupid. Like that Christopher Hitchens thing I was talking about, where the guy tried to say that, you know, the people who abolished slavery were Christians and they thought they were doing God's will. So therefore, listening to God's will is a good thing and being obedient under authority is a good thing. Literally was talking about he used slavery as an example. Let me just put this in perspective for you. A man, a grown man adult, who supposedly is capable of critical thinking, just used slavery as an example of why being obedient under authority is a good thing. And didn't realize how that sounded. People are stupid as shit. And stupidity isn't always your fault. Well, no. Ignorance isn't your fault. Ignorance is when you don't know something. Stupidity is when you know better, but you do it anyway. Or you just don't take the time to actually think things through. Stupidity, there's really no excuse. Because we all have a responsibility to pull our own weight. And when you're stupid, actively making stupid decisions, it suggests an entitlement that you expect people to clean up your messes for you, for people to do the work of learning for you, for people to do your critical thinking for you. And the problem with a lot of stupid people is part of them expects that, and another part of them weirdly expects everything to be up to them. They don't even want you to clean up their mess. They're insisting that there's no mess to clean up. They're insisting that they know what they're doing and they want to be in positions of power. It's so insane. And when you open your eyes and you look at the world, you can understand why George Carlin said, don't take it seriously. When you're born into this world, you're given a ticket to the freak show. So sit back, enjoy the show. Don't consider yourself to have a stake in it. Don't start telling people that there's hope or that everything will be okay if only we do things in a certain way. Stop giving people hope. Just enjoy the show. It's too late. There's nothing you can do to save humans. Just sit back and watch. I think that's a hilarious way to see things. I don't fully agree that there's no hope, but I do agree with the sentiment that you should be sitting back and watching, because you are going to be a lot more clear-sighted when you stop having a goal blocking you from seeing things the way they are. When you have a goal and you're trying to accomplish a certain thing, your perspective is distorted because you're seeing everything relative to that perspective. When you just step back and you become a neutral observer, you no longer have a stake in anything. You no longer identify with the left or the blue party or, you know, the right party and the red wingers. You no longer identify with short people, tall people, black people, white people, gay people, straight people, men, women. You have stepped back and separated yourself from your experience and just become a neutral observer, and you're seeing things as they are. That is what George Carlin did, and that's why he was so smart. Even though he was cynical and believed that everything would go to shit, there's a very real chance that that could happen. I don't think it's a guarantee. I think that it can be stopped. But ironically, I think it'll only be stopped if we stop thinking of it as an option and we start doing what he did. Because what we need more than anything else is to get some fucking perspective. We need to step back and start watching things and seeing them as they are and get out of our own way. Even the people who are fighting the good fight and doing the right thing, they still need to make sure they're stepping back and being a neutral observer, and they're not getting too much in their own head. Because when you get too prideful and you think that you're right and the other person is wrong, regardless of context, you end up making stupid decisions that hurt people. So that's why he was so smart. And he didn't judge people. He said, I don't like people in groups People in large groups, I think that's a problem, but when you get someone one-on-one, it's just you and them, you can see the whole universe in their eyes. And I don't judge people as individuals. I judge people in groups, and then as, even in groups as small as two, it can be people can become stupid. Then three and four, and then they start getting bigger, and then all of a sudden they start getting tattoos and armbands and hats. And he mentioned hats. MAGA, you know, like this was in the 90s when he said this. He didn't have Trump supporters in mind, but he mentioned people start getting hats and slogans and flags. And, when people become in groups and they start identifying with those groups, that's when we start to become defensive and protective and start seeing everybody else as the enemy. And we start to divide and judge and make assumptions about people, put people into categories. He didn't do that. He acknowledged the categories that exist, but he didn't judge the individuals in there on an individual level. And he still was able to acknowledge when someone was a criminal. Like, he named names regarding politicians talking about criminal activity. And that's because he understood that sometimes individuals make exceptionally horrible decisions, and they should be held accountable for that. They can't be embarrassed. That would be like going around and murdering a bunch of people and then getting offended when someone calls you a murderer and saying, "You're judging me." No, I'm observing your behavior and labeling you accordingly. You've murdered people, you're a murderer. You don't want to be seen as a murderer? Stop murdering people. Apologize for the people you have murdered so we know you actually feel guilty about it and understand that it was wrong. Otherwise, you've earned the title murderer. It is what it is. We didn't do that. We didn't force you to kill anybody. So that's what I mean. Like, there's, you just have to be realistic. So there are people who are really good at manipulating and want to judge you and want to make you feel small. Narcissists, absolutely terrifying in relationships. I was talking about that, and I think I got a little derailed. But think about it. Think about when you're in a relationship and all of a sudden, just like the school bully example that I gave, this person is draining your resources, taking advantage of your empathy, and occasionally they will give you something. They'll do something for you. Oftentimes you didn't ask. They're being uncharacteristically generous and nice. And this is called a hoovering technique. Hoover as in vacuum. They're sucking you back in. They want you to trust them. They can see you slipping away, so they'll start acting how they think you want them to act. And then you come back, and then they've got you again. And they can treat you however they want with no consequences, because every time you start to leave, they change up only enough to get you to come back. And they turn your friends against you if you abandon them. You're the villain in their story, and they'll shit talk you to other people, and they'll try to turn people against you, tell people not to be friends with you, not to associate with you. They'll shit talk you to everyone, and they'll use your name. I don't know if you noticed, I haven't used any names. Talking about my friend that had that fight with me the other day, I've speculated about his intentions. I haven't specifically said, don't be friends with this person, he's a bad person. I haven't said his name, and I don't intend to, because I have nothing to gain from shit-talking someone. All I can talk about is my own experience and the experience this person put me through. And I told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth regarding that. I shared exactly what happened, exactly how it made me feel, exactly what was said, and nothing more, nothing less. What these people will do is they will try to control the narrative. They'll leave certain details out. They'll tell the story in a way that makes you sound like the bad guy. And, they do a really good job. Sometimes they even convince you. In fact, that's their main goal. But when they realize they've failed at convincing you and you've given them no way into your life, which, by the way, don't take that lightly. When I tell you to cut out a narcissist, I mean block their number, deny any attempt they make at contacting you, even if they try to talk to you through a friend, say, I'm not talking about that person, we're not having that conversation, that person is cut out of my life, 100%. Don't indulge thoughts, don't stalk them on social media, don't wonder how they're doing. You even have the thought, I wonder how that person's doing. Push it right out of your head. Fully remove them from your life. Do not give them a single ounce of energy, because you don't have to believe in this, but I'm telling you, energy exchange happens without the person being in the same room. You think about that person, you have an energetic cord connection. You think about them, they're thinking about you. And they can tug and pull at that energetic cord between the two of you. and all of a sudden they're back in your life because they may not be in the room, but they've got you. They've got a hold on you. You're thinking about them. You have to sever that energetic cord and sever any tangible means they have of reaching you. Get them out of your life and move on. You have so many better things to do, so many better things to think about than reflecting on how a toxic relationship ended or what that person's doing. Um, so, with because they want you to feel guilty too. They want you to reflect and they want you to wonder if it was your fault. They want you to wonder if maybe you could have done things better. And I had a friend who also stopped being my friend for a really ridiculous reason. Just, I don't even know if it was a misunderstanding. It almost looked like he just picked a fight with me out of nowhere and then just stopped talking to me. It was really weird. But this friend had a relationship with another friend of mine. His friend, I'm still friends with this person, but they didn't have a good friendship, and it was a little bit one-sided and toxic. And I tried to convince him not to worry about it, not to keep reflecting on the relationship. I said, don't blame yourself, don't worry about it, because he was saying, I think it was partially my fault, and maybe I'd still be friends with him if he reached out. I said, don't do that. You 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 did your part, and in my head I was really thinking like you were like a kid and he was older and it should have been his responsibility to cut you off when he realized that you weren't mature enough for the friendship. But whatever, that's still his business. But don't beat yourself up over it. And then that was one of the things that bothered him. He saw that as me trying to convince him that he was a victim. I was trying to empower him to move on with his life and not dwell on something and blame himself for something that just wasn't his fault. But um, you know, he got really upset about that for some reason and didn't tell me until weeks later when he got upset that he thought I was being passive aggressive with him and I wasn't, and it was a misunderstanding. And then I explained that, and he still, for some reason, expected me to apologize, even though I didn't do anything. It was really weird, and it just, but like I said, he's pretty young. I mean, he's 3 years younger than I am, which isn't really that big of a difference, but when you're 23, somebody being 3 years younger is a big difference. So just whatever, it's his business. If he doesn't want to be friends with me, I'm not gonna force him to. We did not have as nasty of a falling out as the other friend that I was talking about earlier in the live stream because I was not as close to him. And the other friend that I'm talking about was a lot older than me. This one was younger. So I'm not going to judge him for that. But the one that's older than me should have known better. And I think it's really disappointing that that happened. So it just sucks. But at least I know what it feels like to be around someone who genuinely respects you and sees you for who you are and doesn't want to make you feel bad or bring you down. I have good, true friends and family that care about me. And even if we have stupid fights or disagreements, we talk through it, we work it out, and we stick by each other's side no matter what. This person, it was way too easy for him to get up and leave. It was way too easy for him to say negative shit about me, to call me inconsiderate. And I'm convinced also that because of the fact that I still live with my family and I don't have to work to afford a roof over my head or food on my plate. If I work, it's just for extra cash. I think part of him thinks that I'm lazy and entitled, and I think there are a lot of other negative things that he thinks when he sees me. And the only thing that I can think is that it's his way of coping with the fact that if he didn't have those things to shit on me for, he would feel intimidated by everything that I'm capable of. And imagine one day I get out there and I accomplish everything I set out to do. And imagine if I do it without even taking his suggestions. I don't think that would make him feel good. I think it would make him feel threatened. And I don't think he wants me to think that. I think he wants me to think that he would be supportive of me and he'd be cheering me on. But that does not line up with the way he was talking to me and the things he was saying to me. And the fact that it was so easy for him to walk out and just not even tell me himself that he wasn't coming back. So, yeah, I would not do that to a friend. Most of the time my friendships end, the other person pulls the plug. And, if I pull the plug, it's because they creeped me out. They made me uncomfortable. They scared the shit out of me. I don't think I've ever creeped anyone out or scared anyone that bad because people who actually talk to me enough to get close to me know that there's nothing to be scared of. I'm pretty boring and I'm pretty upfront. I don't have like a million different personalities or secret intentions. There was a friend that I had to get rid of recently who creeped me out. And I felt like he was using me to distract himself from issues in his life that he didn't want to deal with. And he was being very clingy and very obsessive and very weird. And he kept unadding me on Snapchat and then adding me back and unadding me and adding me back. And I said, that's enough. I'm not adding you back this time. That's enough. And that is a rare instance where I ended a friendship. But when someone is acting like that, you're not getting anything out of it. They're obsessed with you, and you're like, ugh. You know, I'm very independent and very introverted. I like my alone time. It stresses me out to make plans with people and invite people over. It's hard enough for me to just, you know, do things in my day. But, you know, when I have people trying to make plans with me all the time, I can't do that. You need to be okay with the fact that hanging out with me is going to be a rare thing. Um, you know, 'cause it just that's all I can handle. Um, so the closest people to me are okay with me taking a lot of time to myself. Ooh, I can teach you how to do cord cutting for the disaster of the other night. Oh, can I? Well, I'm still thinking about it and processing it, but I'll be okay. And I do know a cord cutting exercise that I learned in the Ivy League Psychic Academy. So Ivy has a class called Relationships, Boundaries, and Cord Cutting. And I have notes of what to do in the exercise. I just haven't done it yet. Oh yeah, that one he picked fights just to pick fights. Sometimes we have to learn from wild animals to understand humans. Brutality, power, alpha wolf, the big fish eating the little fish. I think the world is complex, and the perfection is a myth. Yes, absolutely. Perfection is a myth, which is why the key to life is observe, don't judge, which is kind of what George Carlin's philosophy was. You know, just a more simple way of saying that. Observe, don't judge. Be curious. Um, don't have an opinion, but keep studying, keep figuring out, come up with theories. Don't be drawing conclusions based on a lack of information. That's what an opinion is. Because if it qualifies as an opinion, that means there isn't enough evidence for it to qualify as a fact. Sometimes we have to draw conclusions because if we don't draw conclusions, you know, I shouldn't need to explain why it's necessary to sometimes draw conclusions. Otherwise, you're not deciding anything. You're standing there indecisive, going left, right. I'm gonna just stand here. I can't decide. There's a third way. Oh my God. I don't know. I can't decide. I can't decide. I don't know what to do. Should I stand here? Is standing here a bad thing too? Should I move? Oh my God, what do I do? And then you can't go in every direction at once. At a certain point, you have to draw the conclusion that going in one of those directions is going to get you where you need to go. So you have to make choices sometimes. You have to draw conclusions. You have to be decisive. But you have to make sure that you're basing your decisions on logic, not on reaction, not on arrogance and opinions. You're saying, well, in my opinion, this is wrong. Well, why is that your opinion? You know? Um, just be curious. Don't be so judgmental. Opinions are a gateway to judgment, and judgment is a gateway to making other people feel small and inadequate and unsafe around you, like you're trying to get them, like you're putting them in danger. So don't judge people. I don't do it. I don't judge anybody. I have nothing to gain from judging people. I react to the way they treat me and I try to defend myself, which everyone is entitled to do that. And I would never get mad at someone for doing that. But I've had a lot of people actively try to make me feel small, actively try to make me question and doubt myself. And they never apologize, they never admit fault because they're incapable of growth. Or at least that's what they want you to believe. They are capable of growth. They aren't choosing it. And that is where they're dropping the ball. That is their responsibility. And they want to play innocent, they want to play stupid, they want to act like they can't do it. But that's what stupidity is. That is stupid. But there's no excuse for stupidity, as we explained. There's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. Ignorance is not knowing something, stupidity is knowing better but doing it anyway. And that's why people shouldn't be making so many excuses for stupidity. Now, there's comical stupidity, There's those little inconsequential things that we do where we're like, I don't know, we just do something in the wrong order, like you want to wash your hands before you eat, but then you I don't know, you wash your hands and then you realize that the food is just going to make your hands messy, or I don't know. There could be like a million things. That's not a good example because you still should touch food with clean hands, but there's certain things where it's like, oh, I forgot about this. And it could come from forgetfulness, it could come from just being scatterbrained. We do occasional things that could be seen as stupid, but they're relatively harmless and inconsequential and just funny. And we should be able to laugh at ourselves. We should be able to laugh with other people who are laughing at our stupid things. And it's not mean, it's not judgmental, because we're acknowledging we all do it. Everybody does stupid shit every now and then. But when it comes to the kind of stupidity that I'm talking about, it's on a larger scale. It's like, you know, Dumb and Dumber, when you're driving and you're driving a limo and you're behind the wheel of a car. Behind the wheel of a car is a perfect example of when stupidity is inexcusable, because you have a massive responsibility in front of you. You're driving the ability to kill people, and you have a responsibility to be at your best and do your work. You can't drop the ball and say, well, I'm just stupid, I guess I don't know how to drive. Then you don't deserve to drive. You'll get your license taken away. There are consequences for stupidity of that degree. It's not an inconsequential thing where you're just, whoops, I carried my laundry in the wrong order and then I tripped over myself. Like, this is like, you do something stupid, you kill your passengers, you kill other people, you drive, kill yourself, you end up in the hospital. It's a serious responsibility. And this is why I said that people should educate themselves before voting, because voting for a president is a huge responsibility. A lot of people's lives are at stake and livelihood. And, to not educate yourself on what exactly this is at stake in an election, that's inexcusable stupidity. It's unnecessary. You have months. A lot of other countries don't have election campaigns as long as ours. In fact, other countries have like a week or 2 weeks. We have months and months and months of campaigning. You have access to the internet. You have no excuse to not educate yourself on what each candidate is going to do. Look at their websites. Look at their plans, if nothing else. If nothing else, just use your intuition. Listen to what, experts are saying. Donald Trump could not get anyone who had worked with him to vouch for him. He's got all new people working for him because the people who were closest to him during his first term have nothing but negative things to say about him. Even his old vice president, who his supporters were saying should be hanged for simply following procedure and doing things the way that they were doing, for handing the presidency to Joe Biden instead of saying, no, there was fraud in this election. He claimed fraud when there wasn't any. And I think, he who smelt it dealt it, I think that he did that so that everyone would say that it was unconstitutional of him to deny the results of that election, just so that we couldn't do the same thing when he fraudulently set up this election in his favor. And I really think he did. I think that he found a way to make it so that he would win no matter what, and prevented people from voting for her, prevented those votes from being counted, did something. I don't know what he did. I don't know how he did it, but I'm confident that he did something, because the results made no sense. They go against what all the experts were saying who predict things like this. They go against the astrology, the numerology, the intuition, everyone's gut feeling. Everything was pointing toward her victory. And yet he just came out of nowhere and won by a lot, like an insane amount. He even won the popular vote, which is unbelievable. Something is off. That does not sit right with me. I'm convinced he cheated. And I'm convinced he thought he could get away with it because after all the fuss everyone made about him denying the results of the election, he thought, well, you're not going to be able to do that now. Otherwise, you're going to look just as bad as me. You made all this big deal about accepting the results of the election, which means you're going to have to accept it even if I cheat. And I think he spent the last 4 years planning out how he was going to cheat. He even alluded to a plan. He was like, oh, don't worry, I've got one more secret up my sleeve. I don't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. And he's fat as shit, so that isn't very far. I'm a twink. What am I going to do? Like, Um, Hell, my tarot reading even said we needed Harris to win. Yeah, for real. Um, so that's what I think, is that he knew he could get away with it. And I don't think he's going to. I don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't look like there's anything in place to happen right now, but I know karma is he's racking up his debt. His karmic debt just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and he's messing with things he doesn't understand, and there will be consequences. Karma has a tendency to take its time, but it always comes around. Every time. Might not be when you want it, but it'll happen, and it'll be so satisfying when it does. So I'm holding my breath. I'm sticking around for this one. I'm not going to give up on waiting. I know something is coming to him, and it's not going to be good, and it's going to be fun to watch. um, so yeah. And by the way, I mentioned earlier that I hope that he gets karma for the people he raped. If you are watching this and you don't believe that he raped anyone, first of all, you're calling the women who have come forward liars. And second of all, you're denying the fact that he literally bragged about how easy it would be for him to sexually assault women. He admitted to that. He literally has an audio clip of him talking about how, first of all, just saying objectifying and disgusting things about women and a specific woman that he was talking about in that clip. Then he starts saying, and when you're a star, you can do whatever you want. You can grab him by the pussy. That is vile, disgusting language. That is a disgusting thing for a human being to say. And he wasn't joking. He didn't think he was being recorded. He didn't think he would be caught saying that. He's sorry he got caught. He's not sorry he said it. And if he's willing to say that, I'm sure he's willing to do that. He bragged about how easy it would be to sexually assault women. And he said, sorry. What do you mean, sorry? Do you even understand the implications of that? Because apparently a lot of people don't. Apparently a lot of people think that you can say something like that and still be incapable of sexual assault. Absolutely not. I have not been convinced that men who talk like that would never sexually assault or rape someone. In fact, time and time again, I see nothing but evidence that men are always one wrong move away from raping someone. You piss them off just enough, they'll beat you up. You say the wrong thing to them, they're tempted enough. Men are disgusting, and their behavior is absolutely inexcusable, and it has been excused for far too long. Men have been able to get away with literal murder. I mean, really, like, it, not even exaggerating. Men are murderers and rapists, and they get away with it because they're men, because they're stronger. When women were asked, would you rather be alone in the woods and come across a bear or a stranger who's a man? Almost all of them said, I would rather come across a wild bear than an unknown man, because the when you read forensic files and listen to stories of things that have happened to women, men are capable of a lot more heinous things than bears. And bears are somewhat easy to read. You can tap in and say, okay, what are my options? Can I play dead? What is going to get me attacked? And in the worst case scenario that you get attacked, it's probably not as bad as what a human man could have done to you. Human man could have kidnapped you, found brutal, unimaginable ways to torture you and keep you alive for a long time. A bear doesn't even have a personal vendetta against you. Men are terrifying, and they need to be held accountable for that. They need to start realizing that that doesn't go without consequence when you behave like that. But the world is run by men, and they don't want consequences for themselves. So that's the problem. Um, so yeah, just Donald Trump is just a representation of that. He is symbolic of the things men have been able to get away with. And that's why they love him so much, don't you realize? People like Andrew Tate and Elon Musk and all these people that a lot of Gen Z men and boys are worshiping, these are idolizing, they're absolutely vile, disgusting beings advocating for the most vile, disgusting behavior. And that's why they're shining so much. But you're not going to get away with this for much longer. This is the end. Women are done. The 4B movement has turned into the 7B movement, which basically just means cutting off all connections to men, not having sex with men, not dating men, and not even being friends with a woman who would support men or who would revolve her life around men, completely cutting off any ties you have to the patriarchy and actively fighting against it. That is the world we are looking at right now. Women are becoming motivated and inspired to fight against this shit. And I hoped Kamala winning would inspire people, but now I'm hoping him winning is going to show people how important it is that you get inspired and you fight. A lot's at stake. We gotta keep up the fight. This isn't funny. So, regarding personal advice and personal mental health, if you are going through grief, just to try and wrap this up, because I've gone over a lot of different topics, if you are going through the grief of a relationship, a house that you moved out of, a job that you lost, some big change that feels like a storm that you just can't get away from, you can't get out from under that intense thunder and lightning and rain, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and ask yourself, is there someone that I need to apologize to? Is there something that I need to make right? And listen for the answer. If the answer is no, then your only goal, your only focus should be processing it and moving forward. So ask the universe for some healing. If there's someone that you lost and you need to cut cords with them, do a cord cutting exercise, do some research on that, look into it. Simplest way I could explain it to you is if you just imagine that person and you imagine yourself taking a pair of scissors and cutting the cord, and you imagine that you had a contract of work to do with that person, and you're signing off on that contract and saying, I'm giving this person back to the universe. He's going to have to find someone else or somewhere else to do his work. My role in this person's life is done, and this person's role in my life is done. And you sign that, you make it official, you snap that cord, and you move on. And when they come back, the cord will start to come back. So don't let them come back. Keep that connection severed. It's easier in death because they can't come back when they're dead. But like I said, the cord cutting is still important because they can still have a role in your head. They can still take a toll on your life. Like that friend I mentioned who was actively stalking this person's social media, looking at everything he posted, tracking his location even, completely obsessed. And I said, you have to let this go and stop reflecting and stop blaming yourself. And he refused to do it. He thought that interaction between me and him was weird, and it was listed in his reasons why he wanted to end our friendship. He thought that I was dismissive of those reasons, even though I addressed everything, and the only dismissive thing I said was that it was kind of ridiculous, because it is. Someone's got to be brutally honest with you. If you come up to someone and you're getting mad at them about how long they put popcorn in the microwave for, and you expect them to take that seriously and take you seriously when you're telling them that's a reason that they're going to break up with you or something, you're going to tell them that that's ridiculous and you're going to be right. And they're going to continue to be ridiculous anyway, and they're going to leave you and say, you're dismissive of me. It's like, you're mad about popcorn, dude. Chill the fuck out. But you didn't understand how important it was to me. Popcorn? Somebody had to tell you that that's ridiculous, because you're never going to find someone who's going to take that seriously. And if you do, that person's not going to be good for you, because they're going to be enabling your weird behavior. Enabling you to get mad about nothing. But I digress. It's important that we take care of ourselves and not allow people to make us feel small, but also to acknowledge our flaws, acknowledge our mistakes, acknowledge the ways in which we make stupid decisions and the ways in which we mess up, the ways in which we hurt other people. And we can apologize and we can make it right, but we have to really focus also, and it's equally important. One isn't more important than the other. It is equally important that we stand up for ourselves. We don't allow anyone to talk down to us, to make us feel small. You're never wrong for setting boundaries and standing up for yourself. And you don't owe anybody anything. You're allowed to cut someone off if they're hurting you. And I shouldn't say you don't owe anybody anything, because you owe the people who show up for you and take care of you, you owe them respect. You shouldn't just have a bunch of people who are taking care of you and showing up for you and being there in your life to just sit there and accept all of their kindness and gratitude and not do anything back for them. So it's but if you don't want to feel responsible, then you have to communicate that. You have to tell them that. You can say, hey, I don't want to have a friendship with you. um or you can say, I'm not going to be able to reciprocate what you give me, so if you still want to give me things, just know that it's not going to be reciprocated. Then at least you're communicating, and then they can decide to get away from you because they're not going to get anything out of it. But in general, you at least owe someone an explanation. You owe someone gratitude. There should be some level of reciprocation for the people who are there for you and take care of you and love you. So be grateful, be kind, be courteous, be generous. Know that you owe people goodness, especially when goodness is given to you. But people who take advantage of you, people who try to steal your energy and siphon your light out of you, you don't owe them anything. You don't owe them more attention. There are a lot of people. It's complicated because there are people who you do owe things to, and there are people who want to convince you that you owe them something, when in reality you don't owe them anything. And you have to learn to tell the difference between the two things. I will tell you, it's pretty intuitive, it's pretty obvious. It's sort of like once you're good at driving, after a few lessons, you're behind the wheel of a car and you're good at it. It's intuitive. You just kind of know what you're doing. You don't have to worry. You're not nervous. You don't get in the car and you're like, I have so much power in my hands. What am I doing? You just get in and you're like, yep, just another day driving to work. Oh, there's that. And your intuition kicks in. Your intuition is probably most active behind the wheel because, it is a big responsibility. There is a high risk factor, but you trust your intuition and you know when it is and isn't safe to turn, or when you should push, like intuitive of how much weight you're putting on the gas. Like, all of this is intuitive, and you have to learn how to apply that same intuition to your interactions with other people. Know when you're being taken advantage of, know when someone is guilt tripping you and trying to make you feel like you owe them something when you don't in fact owe them anything, and know when you actually do owe someone something. Like, for example, this is a perfect example actually of both scenarios. You walk into a store and you grab something and you walk out without paying. You owe that cashier whatever it cost, right? Because that was not for you to just take. It cost money and you took it without asking. So you owe somebody whatever it cost, and then now also you owe them an apology for making it more complicated, because then they had to awkwardly confront you about stealing it, which again is that's actually against policy. They're not supposed to confront you or chase you, but that's neither here nor there. My point is, when you steal something, you owe that person what you stole, and you owe them compensation for the hassle that you put them through. But when you walk into a store and you buy one item, and the cashier starts trying to convince you that you should be buying multiple items, that is an example of when you don't owe someone something. There's a friend who always calls you, always wants to hang out, and they try to convince you that you owe that to them, that as a friend you should always be answering their phone calls, you should always be making plans to hang out with them. That's not true. You don't owe that to a friend, because that requires time, energy, and attention on your part, and you don't owe that to anybody. But then there might be someone who is always taking care of you, always bailing you out of tough situations, and the one time they call you and ask for your help, you just ignore them, and you don't care. You don't have any awareness of what's been given to you, and that there should be some level of reciprocation. You just accepted all of that person's generosity, and you never once thought that you might owe them back for that. So what we owe to each other is worth thinking about. Once you get a good logical understanding of it, you won't need to rely as much on your intuition, but in the meantime, use your gut instincts to tell you when you do and don't owe someone something. Your gut won't lie to you. But don't be selfish, don't be arrogant, don't be stupid. Those are good rules of thumb. And in my situation with my friend, I don't think I owe him an apology. I don't think I did anything but stand up for myself when I was being attacked. And it would be nice if the neutral observer, the third person in the room, the other friend, was willing to share his opinions, but He wants to keep them to himself. He doesn't want to get involved, and I can't tell him to get involved. I don't want to start, making it sound like I'm shit talking the other person. If they still want to be friends, they can. I just hope that he doesn't think badly of me. I hope that he doesn't think that I deserved what happened. But he wants to be friends with both of us and not talk about it. That's his prerogative. He hasn't ever done anything to me, so I'm still going to be friends with him. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. Have a good night. This was an unplanned live. I went for 2 hours. But I had fun. And I got a lot of thoughts out, so this was good. I know I said some controversial stuff. The voting third party thing, I know that probably upset some people because I've had conversations with people who vote third party or who don't vote, and they are convinced that they're doing the right thing. They say that they shouldn't have to vote for two shitty options, but I cannot express this enough. You're right that the way things work is not a good thing. We need to change this system. We need to work on it, but you're delusional if you think that change has already taken place. You're right that there shouldn't be a two-party system, but there is. You do only have two options. And if you want to change that, it's going to be a lot easier to do without a Republican in the way, giving you a bunch of new random bullshit to hurl out of the way. Because when you take a look at the world and the country, and you say, what are the issues we need to fix? What are the problems we need to work on? How can we take care of things? You've got a lot of work ahead of you. You've got a lot to do, a lot of social work and protesting and demanding justice and changing systems. There's so much to do. But when you have a Republican in charge, they're just going to be adding to that more and more and more, giving you other random shit to push out of the way. And then by the time you get rid of them and clean up the mess they made, you're back to where you started. All Republicans do is make things worse. So until we can start finding a way to change that two-party system, your priority should be keeping the Republican out of office, especially when it's Trump, because holy shit, there's nobody as dangerous as he is. I've never seen a Republican like him. I've never seen another human being like him. He is repugnant and absolutely like somebody just grabbed all the most disgusting traits of men and the patriarchy and just crammed it into one ugly human, and just everything about him is disgusting. And people love him. It's so weird. It's a cult. I don't know another way to put it. It's a cult, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. And the amount of power we just gave him is extraordinarily dangerous, is concerning, and you say you're concerned about social justice and fighting injustice and all these problems. A lot of people were concerned about the war in Palestine. Well, Donald Trump, what he's going to do to Palestine, a hell of a lot worse than what Harris was going to do. I mean, fucking A. You acted like that was the reason you didn't vote for her. He's not better. And you could say, yeah, but I didn't vote for him either. You let him win. You didn't vote against him. You're like, oh, you shouldn't have to vote against people. If you voted for Jill Stein because of the Palestine situation, I hope you're happy when the Palestine situation gets a hell of a lot worse. His exact words were, finish the job. And he even plans to literally deport pro-Hamas people, which just means, nobody's pro-Hamas. It just means people who are pro-Palestine and people who are protesting and saying, end the genocide. He wants to literally remove them from the country like they're immigrants. Which is insane enough that he wants to do that to immigrants. So I hope you're happy. That's what you allowed into office, because you said, I'm going to vote for Jill Stein because I don't think Kamala Harris is going to do enough to protect the Palestinians from Israel. Well, guess what? She was your only option. Jill Stein had a 0% chance of winning. So voting for Jill Stein is equivalent to not voting at all. You didn't vote for a candidate. You just voted for a random person who was claiming to be a candidate. And you, in doing that, did not actually put a vote for the person who was going to stop Donald Trump and all the crazy things he plans to do. Stop trying to convince yourself that that wasn't colossally stupid, because it was. And he won, and I hope you're happy, because millions of people voted third party. There's over 700,000 Jill Stein votes, over 700,000 RFK Jr. votes, over 700,000 Libertarian Party votes. I forgot what that candidate's name is. And then over 500,000 other party votes. So somebody wrote in candidates, and even more than that, just didn't vote at all. And they were either uneducated or they were misinformed or just didn't fully think it through. Because if you really fully thought it through, there is absolutely no logical or good reason to not vote for Kamala Harris. She was the only one who was actually going to stop Donald Trump. So I hope you're happy. I really hope you're happy. Dude, he might try to deport me because I'm brown. I know. Nobody deserves that. Even people who are here illegally do not deserve to be treated like the way Hitler treated Jews. That's literally what he's describing. He's talking about fucking concentration camps. It's insane. It's very scary, and there are real, live human beings who are going to be affected by this. And I don't even think he's going to stop at the illegals, but I even have sympathy for the illegals because they're humans. They're human beings. My God, I can't presume to know what their intentions were when coming here. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they didn't see another option. Maybe they'd be dead if they didn't come here. And they're grateful. Maybe they're fighting and trying to become legal. Maybe maybe they just don't know any better. Maybe it's ignorance. But they do not deserve to be treated like they're subhuman. Like, oh, they committed a crime. They're technically not here legally, so therefore, let's just pretend that they don't have any rights. No right to due process, no right to a trial, no right to a jury. Just right this way. And that's what he wants, and that's what his supporters want. Idiots. Idiots. Heartless fucking idiots. Human beings. No sympathy. Trans people, also human beings. A lot of hateful rhetoric against them. Lots of people are saying that they shouldn't be allowed to compete in women's sports. Well, what a bullshit thing to say. I mean, come on. Then what? You know, you're trying to say trans women shouldn't be allowed to compete in women's sports, and you use that as oh, well, that's a good point. First of all, let me ask you this: if you agree that trans women shouldn't be in cis women's sports, what do you think that means? That trans people are bad and don't deserve to exist, that they're mentally ill and they should detransition, or they should not be given hormones or given access to any kind of medical procedures on their own fucking bodies? That's none of your business. Or do you just not care what happens? So like, well, stay away from here, but I don't care where you go. Isn't that kind of similar to what you're doing to the immigrants? Get out of this country. I don't care where you go or if you have anywhere else to go, but just get the fuck out of here. It's very unwelcoming. It's very heartless. It's very cruel. And have you even considered alternatives to allowing trans women to be in sports? Have you even imagined if you could like reimagine the way that we think of that? Maybe find another way to categorize people or find another way to set it up. But no, you just say, there's no room for trans people, therefore let's just remove trans people. What if you did that to people with disabilities? Oh, well, there's no ramp in this restaurant, so let's just tell people who need wheelchairs that they shouldn't come to this restaurant instead of making a ramp so they can get in. You're not putting any effort into helping these people be welcome into the world. You're just saying the world isn't designed for you. Well, guess what? There was a time the country wasn't designed for black people. We had segregation. Not that long ago, actually. It was like 50 years ago, not even. And, you know, we had different that's a black bathroom, that's a black neighborhood, we still have black neighborhoods, we still have largely black populated areas because segregation still kind of exists. We didn't really do very much to stop it, just sort of on paper. But you know, we have like these black situations where people can go, and it's just about separating people. And we don't say, maybe we can find a way to make the world more welcoming for them. We just say the world isn't welcoming for them, therefore give them somewhere else, somewhere shittier and lower quality of education and money and quality of life in general. You know, largely black populated neighborhoods and areas are often, you know, there isn't as much money there, or, there's more likely to be violence and crime and like guns and stuff. And it's not because they're black. It's for a million different reasons. It has everything to do with the way white people perceive and treat black people. But then there are people who try to say black people are the reason there's a higher crime rate. So then what? Hate black people? What point are you trying to make? These people do not think things through because they don't actually see other human beings as worthy of that amount of thought. They just are looking for justifications to hate them and other them and just throw them out like trash. And then they're surprised when they start, coming up with illegal ways to do things, illegal ways to get into the country, or there's a higher crime rate in certain neighborhoods or whatever. It's like, well, you threw them out. You left them with no choice. You practically made them illegal. So what choice did they have but to look for alternatives to just get by and survive? You're not even considering their perspective. You don't give a shit. And that is the root issue. So, sorry. I know I said I was going to end this. I went on a little bit of a passionate ramble there, but I just needed to get that off my chest because I've been hearing so much racism and transphobia and homophobia and misogyny and sexism and just all this horrible, horrible shit that people say and they genuinely believe it. And it makes me sick. It just makes me absolutely fucking sick. Yeah, sorry about that. So that's what you voted for. I hope you're happy. If you didn't vote at all, I hope you're happy that you were complacent in allowing that to happen. And all the people who will be deported, all the people whose lives will be made undeniably worse by this, I hope you feel good about the fact that you did nothing to protect them. You just sat there and let this orange fucking dictator get in charge. You didn't see any reason to look into maybe Kamala Harris isn't perfect, but maybe she's like, I don't know, infinitely better than him because literally a potato would be better than him. You just sat there and let it happen. And a lot of people, including you, are going to pay for it. But if you're privileged, maybe you're not going to pay for it as bad. Maybe you're not brown. Maybe you're not part of the LGBT community. Maybe you're not a woman. Then you're probably not going to have to pay quite as bad, but it's still going to affect you. And the people it's going to affect more than anybody else are poor people. Poor people. A lot of black people voted for Donald Trump. A lot of poor people and immigrants voted for Donald Trump. Think about that for a minute. They voted for Donald Trump because he convinced them that he was on their side, that he was going to make everything cheaper. He convinced them that deporting illegal immigrants is a good thing. And those people, they don't think, but they're like, well, I'm not here illegally, so I'll be fine. They listened to a comedian that opened for Donald Trump refer to Puerto Rico as an island of garbage. And there are still Puerto Ricans who voted for him because their hatred is more powerful than their sympathy for people who are going to be victimized by that. They think it's about, you have to have a sense of humor. You have to laugh at yourself. It is true. Do you realize all that's going to do is just stigmatize Puerto Ricans? Fucking God. I just can't believe the shit people come up with, the conclusions people draw. To call them stupid, to call these conclusions stupid is a colossal understatement. It's beyond stupid. It's insane. It's complete insanity. Just utter chaos of the mind. I am proudly Puerto Rican, and I proudly voted against him. Good fucking job, dude. Thank you. I know you are, though, Royce. That doesn't... But still, just for the sake of anybody who doesn't know you watching this, it's nice to know there are sane people out there. There are people who aren't completely fucking whacked in the head, and they can think for themselves, and they can use their critical thinking skills, and they can make educated, well-informed, logical decisions based on productivity, logic, empathy. The irony is a lot of the Trump supporters say, you guys make decisions based on emotion. We're logical. It sounds a little bit like what men have been saying to women for a long time, even though women have a history of being a lot more rational and logical than men. Women are just more candid about their emotions, but men still have those emotions, and how do they handle them? With temper tantrums, like fucking babies. Men are violent, men are arrogant, men are stupid as shit, and women are smarter, and women are better. and we should have put a woman in charge. We have had this country for how many 300 something years? We've never had a female president. What a disgusting disgrace that we've never elected a woman. No wonder we're so stupid. We almost did it. We were this close. Shame on you. Shame on you. Unless you voted for Kamala Harris. Shame on you. If you are over 18 and you're a U.S. citizen and you did not vote for Kamala Harris, shame on you. When he tries to have me deported for being brown, I'm telling him to send me to Ireland. My mom's husband is great at throwing temper tantrums. Sometimes I'm convinced that's all men are good at. But yeah, my family talked about going to Ireland. Or no, I'm sorry, Italy. Different I. When it starts with the same letter, my brain has a tendency to mix it up. Not dyslexic, just took me a second to remember. Ireland is nice, though. There's some places where people are just really, really nice. Would be nice to move somewhere like that, but I weirdly feel drawn here. As long as I've been alive, I felt like America is where I belong, like it's where I'm supposed to be doing my work from, like it's where the majority of work needs to be done. And I feel like it's really the heart of the issues of humanity because it has such a big ripple effect. You know, who wins the presidency in America, that affects other countries. We're a powerful country, a powerful nation, and we meddle in the affairs of other countries. So what we have going on is important. And I've always felt like I belonged here, specifically in the West Coast. It's just where I've always pictured myself. It's where I felt drawn ever since I was a kid. It's like I feel like I'm being called home. And I'm not supposed to leave the country. So as bad as it gets, I'm staying here. This is where I live. This is where I'm going to stay. This is where my fighting is going to take place. And I respect anyone who wants to leave. I totally get it. I would even encourage you for your own safety to get a second citizenship somewhere else because things might get really bad here and you should not have to feel like you're stuck in the middle of this. But I'm choosing to be here and I know what the cost is. I know what's at stake and I'm willing to die for it. I'm willing to lay my life on the line, dying for what I believe in and what I want to fight for. But ironically, I would never be in the war. I would literally sooner die that, if you drafted me and told me to serve our nation in the army, put on camouflage bullshit and shave my head and be in the army, I would sooner kill myself than allow myself to be talked into doing that. And that would be my statement. That would be my way of saying, you can't fucking tell me what to do. I am not a brainless soldier. I will not fight for your cause. I fight my own goddamn battles. I have my own fucking values. I will not adapt yours. I will not adopt yours just because you're a leader. You're an authority figure. Again, with the authority bullshit. So that would be my statement against that. Try me, bitch. Try to throw me in jail. Try to tell me that I have to fight your war for you. I dare you. You put me in a situation where I have nothing to lose. You'll find out what I'm capable of because I might take you down with me. I might not just shoot myself in the head. I might find a way to take down some fucking assholes with me too. If I'm really in a situation where I have nothing to lose, it's like you're either drafted to fight in the war or you're going to jail. Yeah, I'd be like, oh, okay. So the gloves are off now. Oh man, that would be interesting, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't see things getting that dark, but I do see things getting pretty bad. But there's a lot of free will surrounding this. A lot of how bad it gets depends on what we choose to do. So I'm going to make sure I'm doing my part. I'm going to make sure I'm reaching as many people as I can and sharing what I learn as I learn it, which is what the point of this tonight was. And yeah, I'm going to try and have fun as long as I'm here. So have a good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later. I don't know when I'm going live next, but if you're subscribed and you have your notifications turned on, hopefully you'll get notified when I do. I know YouTube sometimes likes to not notify my subscribers. I don't know why that is, but check every now and then. Just open YouTube and check and see if I'm live. Just, if you don't trust the notifications. It's usually in the evening. I very rarely go live during the day. So that helps. If the sun's out, I'm probably not going live. So yeah, have a good night. And maybe at some point I will reintroduce a schedule, because I didn't have the motivation for a schedule on my YouTube channel for a little while. I just said, nah, I'm going live whenever I feel like it. I'm tired of doing this every other week or every week or whatever I was doing. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope to see you again next time I go live, and hopefully this was cathartic in some way. It was for me, but hopefully this was helpful to listen to. When Ivy did a live stream about the election, it was pretty long. It was like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, but it was so cathartic. I absolutely loved hearing everything she said. It really put everything in perspective and made me feel less alone and validated a lot of the ways that I was feeling. And she said that it made her feel good to get it off her chest. So hopefully this is similar for you. Hopefully this was as good for you as it was for me. So yeah, have a good night.